What's your caught in a NSFW situation at work? I was a janitor in college dorms. I worked with this 160-something dude with bad legs. One day my supervisor walked in on him pants down in the janitor closet. The way he tells it, they both locked eyes, then he just turned around and left. His bad legs were irrelevant to the story. It was just a distinguishing feature. My bad. I caught a couple of married co-workers going it in the parking lot. They're married, just not to each other. Walked into the bathroom to see two male co-workers looking at one of their crotches and saying, "Yeah, I'm taking you to the hospital right now." Turns out that the guy being examined was special needs and needed help knowing if he needed medical attention for a nasty skin rash. Turns out that it was just heat rash from wearing really hot clothing during the summer. I worked nights in the reception at a small hotel. Once this older guy came down with his laptop and requested help because he couldn't make his porn work. So I had to update the guy's Flash player to make his Filipino porn work. It was a bit awkward, but I'm not gonna deny some old guy his porn, so I fixed his computer and the dude was happy. The walk-in freezer at the Papa John's in Alamogordo, New Mexico is a dirty place. I wasn't the only person busted with another pizza delivery person doing NSFW things. But, the Domino's freezer in that town isn't any cleaner. This happened just last week. I was trying to find a stock image to use on our newest company blog post. I found one on Google Images, followed it to the original site and clicked the download button for the high-res version. Next thing I know, I'm on the browser's site with 3 other new windows open on my desktop to other adult site. I froze in horror. Lucky for me, my sound was off and I'm in my own office with my screens facing away from the door. The image site looked so harmless. And now I know we have no restrictions on our internet at all. The amount of odd adult titles that have come up in my client search history when I've done tech support is, yeah. A little over a decade ago, I was working as a quality assurance tester at Sony. Rather than slogging my way through unfinished video games, though, I was tasked with watching movies that had been released on Blu-ray, making sure that all of their various features functioned as expected when accessed on the PlayStation 3. While that might sound like an amazing job, it was actually less enjoyable than you'd think, both because I didn't get to choose what I watched, and because I'd have to endure repeated viewings for every subtitle track, alternate cut, and ill-conceived piece of commentary that was included on the discs. One day, I was assigned the movie Eyes Wide Shut. If you're unfamiliar with the film, here's what you need to know. Stanley Kubrick was and still is famed as being one of the most driven and detail-oriented directors to grace the silver screen. If anyone else had made Eyes Wide Shut, though, critics likely would have decried it as a filmmaker's excuse to surround themselves with dozens of naked women. There's a scene, for example, that's literally just Tom Cruise walking through a graphic orgy. Each person involved is wearing a mask, but nothing else. Anyway, as with any of the films that I was assigned, I had to watch this one a half dozen times at the very least. And given that my desk wasn't the most private of locations, my screen was completely visible to anyone who might happen to pass by. Word quickly got around that I was watching pornography, which prompted my supervisor to approach me from behind. "Max, what are you doing?" he asked. I kept my eyes glued to the screen, but held up the movie's case. "It's Eyes Wide Shut." "Oh." He stood there for a little while, staring, until the manager walked over. "What are you guys watching?" "Eyes Wide Shut," we both said. "Oh." Over the course of about 10 minutes, my desk was slowly surrounded by the entire management team, up to and including the department head. When the orgy scene finally finished, they all glanced around at each other, chuckled, then hurried off to focus on whatever work they had been neglecting. It was something of a relief for me, and not, as you might be thinking, because I didn't like having my superiors crowd around me, but because I had been seated with my head at crotch level for the entire showing. Like I said, I kept my eyes glued to the screen. Telling my friend's story with her permission. Of course, my friend had a big interview this day. She studied nutrition in college, and was interviewing with a hospital in Boston to work on their dietetics team. She went to the interview, and met with the hospital worker, sat down and chatted for a bit. It was going well, so the interviewer asked if she wanted a tour of the area of the hospital she would be working in. She agreed, and the hospital was beautiful, but the interviewer seemed a bit awkward during the tour. She figured this was their way of politely ending the interview when they weren't interested, and tried to brush the awkwardness off and compensate by being more energetic, which only seemed to make the interviewer even more awkward. Finally, at the end of the tour when she was leaving, the interviewer admitted that she had a lovely sweater, but there was a lacy, black thong stuck to her back from static. She had been parading around the hospital trying to talk herself up, all the while walking around with a thong displayed for all to see. Needless to say, she didn't end up working there, and to this day jokes about how if she's ever dying and we need to send her to a hospital, how she'd rather die than be admitted there. Not me, but a past coworker, we'll call him Bob Smith. He had logged into a shared computer in our lab one day, and he pulled up Outlook, and then turned around to do something with his phone while Outlook loaded. Well, let me tell you, our corporate mail filter failed that day. I walk in to see Bob turned away from the screen, and on the screen, in the Outlook preview pane, nearly full-screened, was an email. In huge letters, "Bob Smith, are you getting enough big black brick?" And of course, this lovely email was accompanied by a picture showing exactly what they were talking about, just in case you were unsure. I try to suppress a laugh, and just say to him, "Well, Bob, are you?" He looked at me. "Am I what? What are you talking about?" I point to the screen. He can't hit that delete button fast enough. The words "well, are you," with no further context for anyone else overhearing, became a running joke between us. A coworker brought in a VR headset with porn on it, so even though I am a woman and can't get my dick sucked, I got my virtual dick sucked at work. For a while I was sort of dating our secretary. One day after work, after everyone had gone home, she came into my office and we ended up having a great time on my desk. About halfway through I picked her up and pushed her against the glazed glass wall of my office while she was straddling me. After I got tired, she turned around facing the glass and we continued until I finished. I had forgotten about the security cameras in the hallways and entrance. About 3 days later I get to work and there is a DVD-R on my desk, with a note, "Hope you had fun," and it was of the camera that points almost directly at my office because it is on a corner. You could a lot more than I thought you could through those glazed windows. Security guy is either blackmailing me or a bro. Only got caught peripherally in this one. One of my IT guys assigned to one of our regional offices kept getting help requests from one clerical, and most of the problems were questionable at best. She obviously just wanted to see him. One day he gets a call and goes up to her cubicle and she's standing there with her pants off. He backed out of that, put her on his do not respond list until things could get straightened out, and then called me for help since nothing he had done was working. Since she wasn't my employee, I picked up the phone and called the regional director. The initial contact was something like, "Hi, regional first name basis, you know, I've always supported casual Fridays, but don't you think no pants Fridays are a little too much?" I was chilling at my grandpa's work between school and swimming lessons, mainly to eat at the cafeteria. He worked in the government of my shitty country and had an old computer in his office, but him being old he wasn't using it much. So me being a 12-year-old horny pervert and having access to internet for the first time in my life found out about internet porn. I only watched it, but nonetheless there was a lot of disturbing porn traffic coming in through my grandpa's PC. This went on for months until my grandpa got in trouble for using a government computer for porn. I wasn't allowed to come to his work after that. Edit side story. Once I got on my grandpa's colleague's PC, he was like a 35-year-old dude and I was browsing around the shit he had. I found a hidden folder and found something that left me puzzled for years. It was a video of a woman with a huge vagina and a bald dude. He started out slow, just some fisting. Lil bit of fisting. Nothing serious, just some casual fisting. Then in went his foot. Turns out that was a build-up. Dude ended up sticking his bald head in her monster puss, literal reverse birth. I could never unsee that, and interacting with the dude became weird afterwards. Not me, but a close friend. He worked as a vet tech, cleaning kennels, walking the dogs, changing bandages, etc. He was good friends with the boss lady, and she would bring her shepherd mix pups to stay in the kennels some weekends, especially if she was out of town or busy. One Sunday morning he ran up to take care of the animals and the pups were there. They loved to play, so, after cleaning and caring for the other animals, he went into their run and was tossing the ball and roughhousing with these two dogs. One dog jumped on him from behind and its paw slid into his front pocket, pulling down his pants. Right at this moment, with his pants around his ankles, one dog in front waiting and the other behind him, he realized that maybe today was not the day to go commando. Especially as his boss walks in at that precise moment to see him, with her beloved puppers, hanging out in all his glory. He called me when he got home laughing and crying. His boss simply took the dogs and walked out without saying a word. Fortunately, it wasn't a rom-com movie, so he was able to explain the next day. Her only comment was, "Let's remember to wear underwear from now on, okay?"